What's going on, everybody? I appreciate you, all my loyal subscribers, coming back to watch another video. If it's your first time on the channel, like and subscribe, comment, to help out with that YouTube algorithm. Today we're gonna be doing this is a 4x4 epoxy wall art, I guess you could say. I normally do these on a smaller canvas, about a 16 by, I don't know, like a 10 canvas. Customer saw one of the smaller ones I did, gave me some colors to match his house and stuff inside, and this is what we ended up with. So I'll show you how I did this and some of the issues we had. I had it bow because I forgot to seal one side, so we'll go over all that. But I hope you enjoy it, and let's get to it. If my math is correct, 3 ounces will cover 1 square foot. So 3 ounces of epoxy per 1 square foot. We have a 4x4 area we need to cover. So 4 times 4, 16. So that's your square foot. So 16 square feet. So we're going to multiply the 16 square feet that we need to cover by the 3 ounces of epoxy needed to cover 1 square foot, which would be 48. So we need 48 ounces of epoxy to cover 16 square feet. So I'm gonna round that up to 50 to give me a little bit extra, just because. So we're gonna need 25 ounces of part A, and then 25 ounces of part B. So your resin and your hardener, to get 50 ounces, which we need to cover 16 square feet, a 4x4 area. So let's measure that up, and yep, it's got a spot up here for 24 ounces, so we'll go just a hair above it. We'll go just a hair above it, mix it up to 50, and go from there. So we should be good to go. I don't know if you guys could tell, but the first part that I poured in here looked kind of yellow, and that's because epoxy, when it's left in the sun or stuff like that, it'll start to turn yellow. And I've had this one sitting in the garage. When the door's open, the sun is directly on it. I haven't really been paying attention or thinking about it until just now. So with the sun always beating on it like that, it slowly started to turn it yellow. But because we're gonna tint this one a forest green, it's actually blue earth metallic, so I think we're gonna use this. All right, I'll figure it out in a minute. But because we're gonna tint this epoxy, it really doesn't matter that it was kind of yellow. You won't be able to tell anyway, because it's gonna be an actual color. If this needed to be clear, then I wouldn't use this. I would use the new stuff, but this one, it doesn't matter. It's all gonna be a color. So just a FYI, don't leave your epoxy directly in the sun. Another thing, I forgot that I need to tape the edges to give the epoxy a little bit of time to set up, so that it doesn't all just pour over the edges. It'll get a little thick, and then once it starts to run over the edges, after I take the tape off, it'll, I don't know how to explain it, just slow the process of losing so much epoxy. So I need to hurry up and get that done, because I already mixed my part A and part B epoxy together. So eventually this will start getting hot, and it'll all be wasted if we don't get it out of this cup soon enough. So let's get that done now. If only everything could happen that fast, huh? All right, so this is almost, so you want to mix your epoxy for about 5 minutes. Once it's, make sure you scrape the edges, because if not, you'll have unmixed epoxy that likes to linger around the edges. And then when you go to pour it, you're gonna scrape the edges, trying to get everything out, but there'll be unmixed epoxy there, and it'll never set, it'll never cure, and the project is pretty much ruined. So make sure you mix this for about 5 minutes. We're almost there. Then we'll start adding in the pigment, and then we'll start pouring. This is a rainforest green metallic. This is going to be our base color. I don't know if I said this earlier, but the 4x4 piece of wood, I painted it. I did a base coat primer of white, like a ceiling paint, because that's thicker. So if the wood was, obviously wood is porous, so it was able to soak into the wood, close up all those holes. And then I used tan spray paint because the color that the customer wanted was earth tones. So tan being one of those colors, if it was to see through the green base coat here, then it wouldn't look too off the wall. So that's why I did the white first, that's why I did the tan, and then I ran out of tan spray paint. That's why it was kind of splotchy, but at the same time I knew that it wasn't gonna look crazy. So it didn't really matter that it wasn't completely covered. So here's the first green base coat poured, and I had to mix up, I want to say maybe 2 or 3 extra ounces. It wasn't too bad, but I did have to mix up a little bit more. My math was pretty spot on. One thing I will say, if you're going to attempt to make a canvas or something big like this is my first time actually going this big. Like I said before, I've only made these on the smaller 15 by 10 paper canvases, so I haven't gone an actual 4x4 before. So, but anyway, if you're gonna make one of these, my suggestion would be to make sure that your math is right, because you don't want to pour the epoxy, have colors in it, and then need to mix more, because if you don't get your colors just right, or if you're not able to mix the 2 colors again on the piece itself, after I poured my second 2 or 3 ounces extra, I was able to kind of mix them like you see me doing my hand right there, so they kind of blended in. But if you have it where you can't mix it, it's gonna be a really distinct, I don't know how to say it, like a color match won't be perfect. So most of the time I'll weigh my pigment out. I'll put the cup with the epoxy in it on the scale, put the pigment in there so I can see exactly how much pigment that I'm actually putting in there. So I'll do that just in case I need to either replicate this again for somebody else, or if I need to mix more epoxy. So just keep that in mind when you're making bigger projects. You want to get everything done at once, or if it's a big enough project where you can't mix it all at once, then you might want to go ahead and weigh out your pigment or count your drops if you're using liquid dyes. The pigment I have in the cup right here is a coffee metallic, and the one that's already mixed is a gold metallic. I like metallics just because they have like that shimmer, and to me they just look better than using like spray paint or something like that in the epoxy and mixing it up. They're normally kind of flat, but sometimes if I do use spray paint because I don't have that color pigment, I'll put the spray paint in there and I'll use white metallic to give it like that shimmer look, just to kind of get the same effect. Here I had to really use my hands to get the effect that I wanted. I had to do this a lot. As time goes on, you'll notice that if you're dealing with epoxy, you'll notice that you could do an effect in the epoxy now, and 10 minutes later it'll look completely different. The pigment will, especially if you're doing a thicker pour, the pigment likes to settle at the bottom. So if you're not constantly stirring it, redoing your effects, then by the time you get to the end, they're not going to be there. So with this one, I had to keep going back over it, using my hands. I used the compressor with compressed air to blow it around to kind of get like that rippled effect in it. But I had to stay on top of it as it slowly started to cure. So maybe for like an hour, every about 10 or 15 minutes, I would come back, do this, what you see right here with my hands, obviously after all this was poured. But I would go back, do this just to kind of keep it all moving so that the effects would get stuck in the epoxy.
I hope all this is making sense. I'm trying to throw all my information at you guys at one time. So whenever you do these, you're going down the right track, and you're not going to mess up like I've done in the past. So hopefully all this makes sense, and you guys can learn from my mistakes. Also, speaking of mistakes, so like I said in the very beginning, I had this piece bow on me or cupped. Um, when you do something like this, the wood is obviously it's going to attract moisture. So with the epoxy on one side sealing that wood and the back of it just bare, it absorbed moisture through the side with nothing on it, and it caused it to cup. If I had used a lacquer like I did after I did all this epoxy and it cured, I never would have had that issue. So don't be like me.
Just got the back of this, all the drips sanded down, hit it with some 100 sandpaper to get it all smooth. We got the other side taped off, so now we're gonna paint the edges gold, and it'll pretty much be good to go. So let's go ahead, get this done, get this thing finished, and I'm gonna wait on putting the hangers on it. I might drop this off at the customer's house. Haven't quite decided yet, but depending on which way they wanna rotate it or have it hanging on the wall, depends on which side the hangers go, so I might wait on that one. So let's get to it.